If you guys don't know me, I'm Ninkey. I'm the rank 1 Gwen. I peaked top 10 1300 LP, and I'm going to be teaching you guys how to play Gwen after the revert. And also, if you want to see in-depth matchup guides, they're on my academy, school.com/Gwen. These are going to be like super in-depth ones with long-form videos and like big detailed descriptions. However, I'm going to be releasing new matchup shorts for the third time after the revert. You guys can also just wait for those to come out. So recently, Riot just reverted all of the Gwen changes they did in her entire rework, so now she's pretty much back to where she was exactly about 6 months ago. But in the current state of the game, she's actually a lot stronger than she was back then, because they did a lot of things like buffing all the AP items and buffing some runes. So now Gwen is actually just completely broken for top lane, also mid lane, but a little underpowered in jungle. This guide's going to be mainly about top lane, but I'll do a specific mid and jungle guide if you guys want. But I think I found the secret tech. The win streak speaks for itself. I'm pretty much winning every game on my second account. And let's just say, spoiler alert, Riftmaker is back in the meta. First, I'm going to talk about what shifted and like what changed with her champion identity. Overall, these changes made Gwen really tanky in the early game, so you're kind of unkillable in lane, but your laning is a lot weaker, and if you E forwards, you can easily get caught out and die. So you have to be a lot safer with your E. However, if you get to like level 6, you can kill them usually, and you scale just really hard. So the more AP items you just get super, super strong. Especially around 2 and 3 items. Overall, I think these changes were really good to Gwen. It makes the early game a lot worse though for high elo, which is annoying because in high elo, the early game matters a lot. So this makes Gwen a lot more low elo skewed. It's going to be a lot better for you guys below like, I'd say masters or so. I'm going to go into runes, sums, and then builds, and then a little bit of like a game plan. So for runes, I think Conquer is always the best keystone. Some honorable mentions are Electrocute, which is fun to play for the big burst, but I wouldn't recommend it if you're trying to climb seriously. For consistency, First Strike is also okay in some games, but again, Conquer will just be good 99% of games, and it'll be better than First Strike, like about 80 to 90%. So even in those few games where First Strike might be better, it's just not worth it to have to learn all of your damage limits again and all of your like limit tests on First Strike compared to Conquer. It's just better to stick with one for consistency. So I really like this rune page. I'm taking Triumph over Presence of Mind because I feel like, especially with the build that we're going to be going, you're really just playing to get low HP and outplay people and just do big damage and heal a lot. So Triumph is literally that small difference between you killing their entire team and just like dying in a fight. Alacrity is always best. I have experimented with Haste a little bit. It feels okay, but again, I'm not the biggest fan. Alacrity just scales a bit better in my opinion. And plus with Riftmaker, you're going to be having a lot of Haste. And last stand, again, just always the best rune since Gwen, you're playing for low HP fights. Secondaries, there's like 4 options, I'd say. Conditioning Overgrowth is pretty much my go-to right now. I'm taking this like 80% of lanes because it scales really well with Riftmaker and your defensive boots. You just feel a bit tankier. In a matchup that you feel like is free, you can go Boots Biscuits. This setup is really good if you're like versus a tank and you know they can't really do anything. You don't need those early boots to run them down. And you can kind of just sit here, scale, get a lot of gold value because now you won't have to purchase boots early and you can just sit on the tier 1 till your second item or third item. So this setup is really good if you have a free lane. I would go this, like pretty much any tank. Also, if you're versus a tough matchup like Renekton, Riven set, where you need the bone plating for that conditioning setup, you can swap the conditioning to bone plating. For secondaries, if you're versus a ranged matchup, for example, and you think it's a free lane, so you don't want the condition overgrowth, I would go Cosmic Insight Biscuits because you want to get rid of the free boots. If you have the free boots, you're not going to be able to run people down early game, and you're going to have to wait till 11 minutes to actually space them properly, which is really bad. That's why I'd only recommend going this in free matchups. For the shards, this is all just standard. You could go flat HP, but it does get outscaled at level 6, I've been told, so I just don't think it's worth. For summoner spells, I'm going Flash TP pretty much every game. Some games I'll replace the TP for Ignite, but very few matchups. Because before we were going Flash Ignite every lane and playing the kill, now we're doing the opposite. We're taking Flash TP, we're just playing super defensive, especially if they have an Ignite, we're playing really safe, scaling to level 6, and then going for our kill opportunity. But you're not really playing aggressive, you don't want Flash Ignite unless it's a very specific matchup. And yeah, overall, TP just feels better for mid game as well. You can just get more gold with it. Like Ignite might get you a kill early, but TP could be the difference between getting a tier 2 and not getting a tier 2 in the mid game. So I really like TP. It's kind of hard to use. It's going to take some time to adapt, but if you can get used to it, it's really, really good. TP Ignite, I've been asked about this a lot. I think TP Ignite is actually really good for lower elo because the problem with TP Ignite is it gets outplayed by the enemy just being better at the game. Like if the enemy is good at the game, you can engage on them, they'll flash your combo, and now you have no escape because you don't have flash, or you don't have any way to reposition your stuff without flash, so they can just kill you for free. So around like, I'd say Masters level, TP Ignite just loses a lot of value. And then also, when you take TP Ignite, if the enemy jungle is good, they'll realize they can just come and kill you for free, since a flashless top laner is a free gank. And Gwen's E is also a really long cooldown now, so you get punished super easily. If you E forwards ever with TP Ignite, you'll just get ran down. So I just don't like it because it's super risky. I do think you can make it work if you really want to. I'm just saying Flash TP is what I'm going. So if you want to copy what I do, Flash TP is better. And I think overall, you'll be able to do more stuff with it, especially as you get higher elo. Ghost, I'm not the biggest fan of this at all. I feel like Flash is literally just a better laning tool, and it scales better as well. Like, Ghost is just terrible. Unless you're playing jungle, but that's a separate video. And then Flash Ignite into some lanes. Like, for example, Darius lane, you need that extra damage with Ignite, and then you can get rid of the TP for Ignite. Because you don't really need it as much, you just need to be able to kill him. Mordekaiser as well in set. I'd say these are the few matchups where you need Ignite just for that extra damage, not even for the anti-healing. And then since we're not taking Ignite in most of the lanes, if you're versus a champ like Fiora or Warwick, you're going to want to take Oblivion Orb so you can cut their healing. Okay, now for builds. For top, this is the build that I've been going like every single game, pretty much. I'm going Nashor's first, then Riftmaker, then Rabadon's Void Staff, Zanya's. Like the 4th and 5th slot kind of depend on their team, but it's pretty much always Nashor's, Rift, Rabadon's, these 3 core items. It's the standard build. It feels really, really good right now because when you have Riftmaker, you already have enough damage with the damage buff, so you don't really need a damage second item. So now you have health, you have ability haste, and you just have Omnivamp, so you're just surviving a really long time, and you already have 1 billion damage. So you don't need more damage second anymore, so there's just no point in building Shadow Flame or Horizon Focus or Malignance, for example. These items are just all outclassed by Rift, unless they have like a really squishy team comp, in the case where you feel like you're going to get bursted even with Rift, and you kind of just need to one-shot them first. Then you can go Shadow Flame, or you can like look at the other builds. But this is my go-to build for like 90% of games. Also pairs really well with the runes we were talking about. So yeah, third item, Rabadon's is usually ideal. If they have 50 or 60 MR, Shadow Flame actually outdamages Rabadon's third. But for consistency's sake, I would just go Rabadon's most of your games. Unless you really can't afford it, you can get Shadow Flame. Fourth item can be Shadow Flame or Void Staff. Depends if they're squishy or not. Or it could also be like a tanky item. It really depends game to game. Zanya's is a good option as well. Banshees. Literally any item, 5th, 6th slot feels really good. But yeah, these 3 are core. Void Staff if they have MR, and then anything else is kind of just up to you based on the game. You can also go like Kanik Rukern or something. But the other build, it's pretty much the exact same thing, except you swap Riftmaker for Shadow Flame. But I would only do this if you're versus a melee top, they have a squishier team. If they have a melee top and a tankier team, Riftmaker is good. Even into squishy teams, Riftmaker can feel really good. I just like this item a lot right now. And then if you're versus a ranged matchup, Lichbane, Shadow Flame, Rabadon's feels really good as well. But make sure, if you're taking this into a ranged matchup, it has to be a champion that you can actually one-shot. Like, for example, Cassiopeia is a ranged champion, but she has Roa and she has Seraph, so she's really, really tanky, and you actually need consistent damage more than you need Lichbane for burst. So keep that in mind. Again, like something like Gnar, he has a lot of tank stats, so you're going to need to determine it based on the game, but these are like the 3 builds I'm going most of the time. For your starting item, you're always going to want Doran's Ring. After they nerfed D-Shield Second Wind, this has also made Gwen's landing a lot better because now people can't really sit there and out-sustain you with it. But D-Shield's is bad now. I would never really go this. Even in matchups like Teemo or Vayne, I would still just not go it. I think Doran's Ring's better since you can kind of convert your health for mana just by using your W well. And then just a small little note. When you're buying stuff on your first recall, you're going to want Darkseer refillable most of the time, and then tier 1 boots. These are like your number 1 priority items. Then when you build into stuff like Nashor's or Lichbane, for Nashor's, you always want to prioritize the Blasting Wand, and you want to prioritize the raw AP, because you're trading mainly with your Q, so the raw AP just helps a lot. With Lichbane, again, you want the raw AP, you want the Blasting Wand, you want the Amp Tome, Wisp, and you want to get the Sheen last. So with Nashor's Tooth, get the Recurve Bow last, and with Lichbane, get the Sheen last. Just small little thing. But yeah, other than that, this should be the builds. For boots, I'm liking Sorks a lot, especially if they have mixed damage and you feel like you don't really need the defensive boots for survivability. If they have assassins and it's clear that you need like tabbies for Rengar one-shotting you or for Zed one-shotting you, then it's good to go tabbies. If they have a lot of CC, Mercs are also good. It really depends on the game, but Sorks is a good default if you don't know what to get. Mercs or tabbies if they're like heavy one type of damage or they have like an assassin or they have a lot of CC, something like that. And a small little thing, usually I wouldn't upgrade tier 3 boots if they're Sorks. If they're defensive boots, like the tabbies or the Mercs ones, they're actually really good to upgrade, especially if you feel like you're getting one shot. And this can also save you from having to build like a full defensive item because it gives you like a mini shield. So yeah, this is the best build. If you don't know what to do, you can literally just run this build every game and it'll be fine. If you want to swap your build based on their comp, these two are also decent. I'll mention some other items briefly. Malignance is okay, but I just think it gets outclassed by Shadow Flame if you want to go a burst build. Even though it's cheap, it's just a lot less damage and it scales worse. Storm Surge is actually one that I like. If you want to have fun, this is like a really fun build to go. If you go Lichbane Storm Surge or like Nashor Storm Surge, you actually do a lot of damage. But again, it doesn't scale as well as Shadow Flame and you have to end the game early. That's why I don't recommend it. For your bans this patch, I'm going to recommend banning Garen, especially if you're like in the middle of the line elo. Garen is literally the worst matchup again because before the revert, it was already really bad. And after the rework, we thought, okay, Garen matchup's fine again. And they also changed him as well. But nope, after the revert, it's just back to being terrible. He will just cook you in lane, dive you under tower on repeat, and he's unkillable in lane. So really annoying, neutralizing matchup. I permaban Garen personally. Riven and Jax are also decent ones, but I feel like if you learn how to play these matchups, they're actually Gwen favored at the highest level. Garen, on the other hand, at the highest level, you will always lose. Same with Jace. So for consistent bans, I would just pick a champ. Try to pick a champ you see the most in your games. If people constantly pick Riven into you, ban that. If people constantly pick Garen into you, ban that. But those are a bunch of good bans. So on new Gwen, the way you want to play early game is pretty much just by playing super reactive. You're going to take your Doran's Ring 2 pots level 1, and you're just going to walk into lane and just chill there until you get to level 6. So you're going to let the enemy push in. You can kind of trade them a little bit like with an auto Q, but you're never going for long trades because if you get to about like half, there's a high chance that you're going to get dove. Overall, Gwen's laning is just a lot weaker but safer now, which is a good thing. So now you can just chill in lane. Very low risk. You're not going to die early, but the hardest part is you can't really force a lead as much anymore. So you're kind of just going to be scaling, dropping a little bit of CS, and pretty much just playing for your spikes. After your first recall, that's when you can kind of start to play the game a bit. Once you have Darksteel refillable, you have a little bit of forgiveness for messing up. You have your pots so you can trade. And you also have your TP, so even if you get yourself into a bad spot early, you can just TP back and chill. The only thing I'd say is just try to freeze the wave on your side of the lane. If you get into a situation where you have to slow push into them, try to sit outside of the XP, or sit like just inside the XP range. Soak your XP until jungle comes top and can help you break the freeze. Or just like walk up, ward the bush so you know enemy jungle isn't hovering, and then kind of just chill in the top bushes so you can farm for free or like soak the XP for free. As long as you can make it through the lane, only down like 10 to 20 CS by the time you're like 10 minutes into the game, you're in a really good spot. And remember, XP is way more important than CS. The faster you get to level 13, the faster you win the game. The level 6 all-in is still very possible. I'd say with TP, you don't have as much damage now, so you need them to be about like 60-70% HP, and at that point, you can kind of burst them with your ult damage. And yeah, your burst damage is increased a lot at level 6, but again, you don't really have to force anything. You kind of just chill in lane, and everything's going to be good for you once you hit like 2 items. When you're playing versus a melee matchup, you usually want to play just inside the lane, or you can play in the bushes if you know that they're not there. But if you're playing a range matchup, you kind of want to play inside the bushes and just chill there, walk in and out to farm, but then sit in the bush until they ward it. And then once they ward it, move to a different bush, or you can just walk out and just chill. But in the range matchups especially, you have to be a bit more careful and try to deny them from autoing you for free. My biggest tip for the early laning is just never use your E aggressively unless you know your jungle's top or you know that you can go for a kill. After the rework, I was always using my E by default just to like play super aggressive, but nowadays, if you E forwards, it's on like a 10-second cooldown after you use it. It's not 4 seconds like it used to be. So if you E forwards, you will get punished very hard and you won't have an escape. Focus on rushing tier 2 boots into the range matchups where you feel like you can get ran down, and try to get some defensive boots into the hard matchups like Set or Renekton where you feel like you really need those stats to survive. Other than that, usually rush the raw AP components and your early lane should be pretty good. In the mid game, after you hit like 1 item or so, your main goal is split pushing, but also playing very safe. Before, I would kind of just run into the side lane and just hit turrets on repeat, but now you really just want to wait to see people on the map and wait for your team to kind of create space for you to walk up. So for example, if they're fighting over an objective, your team's created some space, you can go walk up and hit the tower. Or if you see the enemy jungles on one side of the map, you can actually look for a kill angle on the enemy solo laner and look to just get a tower for free potentially. But you're mainly just playing patient and you're really just waiting for an opportunity to show up and not trying to force stuff as hard. But yeah, you do want to stick to the side lane until you have 2 to 3 items. Ideally, 2 items is when you become like really, really strong with Riftmaker Spike. You'll become a demon in team fights and you'll be able to survive even after your W runs out. Even if nothing happens in the side lane, you can't really push a lead, just keep waiting because eventually the enemy laner will get bored and go to a fight or just like forget you exist and leave. Or they might even walk up and try to fight you and you can get a free kill. But but always look for those cheeky kill angles, especially when the enemy's not there. Level 13 at 2 items is your hardest power spike in the game. You still get stronger as the game goes on, but that is when Riftmaker spikes the hardest. When the game gets late, the Riftmaker is not going to be as useful because the stats just won't be as valuable, right? 400 health isn't enough to keep you alive when everyone's 5 items. So that's when you want to abuse your lead the hardest. Again, 3 items, 4 items, you are still really good, but just try to get a big lead or try to get some good team fights or some tier 2 towers by the time you're at your 2nd item. It's also fine to give objectives so you can get gold. If your team is fighting Dragon and enemy top lane or TPs, don't TP unless you have Riftmaker, because it's probably just going to be a lost fight. Gwen isn't really that useful. And also, play around your ult. If your ult is not up, never help your teammates. Especially after this revert, your ult is literally all of your power. Late game at 3 to 4 items, Gwen is really, really strong. The one-shot build will be much better at this point, but Riftmaker will still be decent, even this late into the game. But now at this stage, most of the time you're going to want a team fight and just kind of run mid with your team. Identify if it's a good game to flank or if it's a good game to front to back. And what that means is, do you want to just flank the enemy and come from a weird angle out of vision to get a kill? Or do you want to just walk mid lane with your team and know that if you peel your teammates front to back and just hit whoever's in front of you, you're going to win the game? So the factors for determining that, if they have like assassin champions, so you can't really face check easily, you want to play front to back. If they have champions like Poppy, you don't want to walk into the jungle, etc. But it really depends based on their comp, and you're going to have to get better at recognizing these patterns. Good front to back comps tend to be generally the tankier ones where they don't have like a high damage ADC. If they have a super fed high damage ADC, that's when you're going to want to come from a flank and try to one-shot them. Also, your goal isn't always to kill everyone, but just to create space. If you walk forwards and separate their backline and their front line with your W, and then just walk away, that could have already bought your team enough time to kill their entire front line. In teamfights though, keep in mind, late game, when your W runs out, you have to back off, especially with fights that have more than 3 or 4 people. In the mid-game skirmishes, you can keep fighting when your W's down, but at this point in the game, you have to back off whenever your W runs out. You will get completely one-shot. But yeah, team fights are usually the best option. You can also split push, but keep in mind this is a little risky since you could get collapsed on in the side lane, and if you lose the 1v1 in the side lane, it could just cost your team the game, so it's more of a flip. Gwen tends to shine more in the team fights, especially around like 3 to 4 items. So anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed the guide. I'm usually live on Twitch around 12 p.m. EST every day, so if you have any questions, just be sure to pop by there and ask me them, and I'll try to answer as best as I can.